So Peter Strzok's blaming the whole Russia hoax that we spent 3.5 years litigating, basically, or dealing with it in the Justice Department. And two of the lawyers that are on right now, Andy and I, of course, were heavily involved in that. And now Peter Strzok's on this publicity tour about his book, saying that this was because of overwork. Now, Fan Bennett, you're in Washington, D.C. This overwork line is a joke. And I'm going to point out in a minute why, but go ahead.
Yeah, a complete joke, and he says that there were inexcusable mistakes made, no doubt. Yeah, Jay, those were his mistakes, and that's not me conjecturing. That's not speculation. That is now fact. We have a document from the FOIA investigation, which Andy referenced, where the D.C. field office said that there was no derogatory information found and that the FBI is closing this investigation. That directive, that memo was not followed, Jay. Why? Because Peter Strzok overturned it at the direction of the 7th floor. You went through some of the names that are on the 7th floor. That also includes Peter Strzok because he was running this investigation. So if there were inexcusable mistakes made, as we now know there were, by the way, those irregularities in the FISA case now, Jay, throws into question everything that court has done. The Inspector General said as much. So those inexcusable mistakes, those were done. Those were the responsibility of none other than Peter Strzok. And by the way, Jay, we can get into more of this if you want, but none other than Slate, The Atlantic, and The Washington Post is now heaping praise on Peter Strzok. That tells you just how in the can for him they are.
Let me tell you somebody who I don't think's putting a whole lot of praise on Peter Strzok. Well, we know Bob Mueller finally fired him during the investigation. But listen to what Attorney General Barr said about this whole investigation.
Building these cases, especially the sprawling case we have between us that went on for 2 or 3 years here, takes some time to build the case. So he's diligently pursuing it. My own view is that the evidence shows that we're not dealing with just mistakes or sloppiness. There was something far more troubling here, and we're going to get to the bottom of it. And if people broke the law, and we can establish that with the evidence, they will be prosecuted.
All right, so you got a clear understanding of what Bill Barr's prepared to do. So that's number one. Number two, on January 4th or January 5th, no one's really exactly sure there, former President Obama, James Comey, Sally Yates, your friend Andy, Joe Biden, and apparently Susan Rice discussed the transcripts of the Flynn calls and how to proceed against him. Mr. Obama himself directed the right people investigate General Flynn. Now, that came, again, while the FBI that was actually doing the investigation said nothing there. So they were still insisting on trying to take General Flynn down and hurt the incoming administration.
And we have to really be cognizant of the significance of that meeting, Jay, that occurred in the Oval Office. There's a meeting, Obama's there, Comey, Yates, Biden, Susan Rice, and they're talking about things. The meeting concludes, and Obama, the President of the United States now, calls back Biden, and Yates, and starts talking about things. And Sally Yates says she's flabbergasted. She had never heard of anything like this nonsense. She's the Deputy Attorney General. The FBI reports to her directly. So unless Comey had some grand scheme, I don't believe Sally Yates didn't know this. And the president himself says, and with respect to General Flynn, make sure the right people investigate. That is a directive that makes sure this is taken care of the right way.
All right, but this caused the former FBI director, James Comey, now listen to this, to acknowledge the obvious. General Flynn's phone calls with Ambassador Kislyak, quote, appeared to be legit. By the way, Bill Barr said the same thing, an incoming NSA, that would be normal. According to Strzok's notes, it appears that Vice President Biden, Harry, personally raised the idea of the Logan Act. That became an admitted pretext to investigate General Flynn. Now, the Logan Act, which has never been applied successfully in a prosecution and hasn't been raised in, I think, 100 years. What was going on here in your view?
Well, in my view, this was, in all likelihood, a premeditated attempt by the Obama-Biden administration using the FBI and the Justice Department to overturn an election that the Democrats felt that they could never lose in 2016. So essentially, after Hillary Clinton lost, they continued an investigation which was not based on facts, an investigation that was not based on evidence, an investigation that was a wild goose chase, as Peter Strzok admits.